Zealand has just topped the list the last day or so of the IMF's unaffordability list around homes. This is pretty big stuff. And the Labour and the Greens say the Reserve Bank's new rules for investors to have 40% deposit to buy a house won't be enough to bring houses down. Are they right? Around the panel, how do we get house prices down? Megan Woods.
Well, the rule that's coming into play tomorrow, the 40% deposit, the new LVR, that's Reserve Bank policy, and I think what we have is a government that thinks it can subcontract its policy around housing affordability to the Reserve Bank. This on its own, there's nothing wrong with it. We might have been able to look slightly higher, 50 or 60%.
50 or 60%, that's what you could do.
What I'm saying is these other options that could have been looked at.
For example?
50 or 60%. That it could have been looked at.
But other policies.
No, I'm coming to that. What I'm saying, that is fine, but on its own, it's not enough. That the simple fact of the matter, if we want to get more affordable houses, in the words of my leader, then you have to bloody well build them. And that's what we will do.
All right, okay.
That it's house building and it is supply side
Peter,
as
you've
well.
been around for a wee while. Give us this house of... Don Brash says this is absolutely nuts. Have we ever seen anything like this in New Zealand history?
Well, I think we did in the 70s, and that led to a whole lot of moves very similar to those that are being touted now, all of which failed. The only way you actually get the problem resolved, and Megan's right, is build more houses.
That's right.
The problem at the moment is that everyone is taking one little segment of the problem and saying they'll solve it. There's got to be an overall approach. That's why I've constantly called for a national housing summit where you get the builders, the banks, local government, central government, the community housing providers, etc., in the room to develop the strategy.
That sounds sensible.
Well, you see, at the moment what you've got is young couples, young families, unable to get into a home of their own at the very time that the Reserve Bank and the banks are making it harder for them to borrow. That's dumb. That's where the policy's becoming totally inconsistent.
That sounds sensible. An inquiry. That sounds sensible.
Well, we've had inquiries. I think some fundamental changes got to be made to the way in which we manage the economy, and New Zealand First has always said that the Reserve Bank Act is out of date, and it's now proving to itself to be totally ineffective. But I want to come back to your first question. Will these changes make a difference? No, they won't. They won't make a skerrick of difference. And the point is that you're dealing with a situation where banks are offering very, very low interest rates, and the 40% deposit won't affect any of these speculators at all. They've made so much money out of the housing market already. Their equity levels are so high, 40% deposit doesn't mean anything to them. The only people it's going to hurt are first home buyers who are struggling to raise that 20%, and at the moment the property market is just getting further and further beyond their reach. We need to deal with speculation.
What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Well, I think New Zealand First has always said, we agree, we've got to build more houses, but we've always said what is fueling this demand is speculators, foreign speculators, and immigration.
So it's the immigrants.
And you have to turn off the immigration tap and deal with foreign speculators and start running the country's economy in favour of New Zealanders and young New Zealand families who want to get ahead.
Wow, so New Zealand First blames the immigrants for house prices.
I'm saying, look, you've got a supply and demand, and you're pumping more, 60,000 immigrants into Auckland every year. That is ridiculous. If they want to go into the provinces, fine. But I'm seeing in the Wairarapa already the consequences of the Auckland problem. And now we've got Auckland refugees from Auckland fleeing the Auckland area, buying up in the Wairarapa, and property values are skyrocketing there as well.
Paul Foster-Bell, that's a fair point though, isn't it? 70,000 people flooding into the country. Auckland's bearing the brunt of that. That's the honest point, isn't it?
Well, no one's denying that there is a huge challenge here, but let's just.
But do you agree with Ron Mark?
No.
Do you agree with
not
Ron?
about the immigrants? I actually think that's.
I
think that's disgraceful dog whistle politicking in my view. But look, just coming back to the key point here, that there is an independent Reserve Bank in New Zealand that's actually served us pretty well over a number of years.
Well, your government tried to lever them
and
last
I find
week.
it terrifying that Labor are now saying they'll be bossing around an independent governor of the Reserve Bank.
Megan,
what we're saying at all. What we're saying, Paul, is your government thinks it can subcontract housing policy to the Reserve Bank, sit on your hands and do nothing, while a generation of New Zealanders are locked out of home ownership.
And of course, the free market's going to fix it all, isn't it?
Well, that we've simply got to let a generation of New Zealanders get a shot at home ownership.
It's actually pretty clear if Megan had read what the Reserve Bank governor had said, this is about the economic stability of New Zealand. So no one thinks that this is a silver bullet.
There is no stability right now.
There is no stability right now. I'll come back to you, Peter. to Hayley first and then back to you guys.
Yes, I am with a lady who is at the coalface, Jenny Campbell, the CEO of the Mortgage Supply Company. Now, how much difference are these changes? You've got fans. I don't think I've ever met a mortgage broker with fans, but that's cool. How much change is this going to bring?
Well, it's certainly not going to bring prices down if that was the intention. I agree with the panel. It is largely a supply and demand issue. It's pretty basic economics. We simply don't build enough houses to keep up with demand, and that forces the prices up. And the problem with that largely sits at local government level. They simply don't release enough land. They make it so difficult for developers to get new subdivisions up and going, because that's what we need across this country, is new development, new homes for people.
I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, but what about empty houses and land bankers?
Look, I think that's, honestly, I don't even think that's an issue at all. Like, why? I just don't even think I think that's a myth, an absolute urban myth. Don't see it happening ever.
Right. I guess nobody really knows unless we're sort of breaking into any of these houses. But do you think that first home buyers are going to be shit out of luck?
Well, yes, property prices are really high for first home buyers, but also there's some great programs now for people wanting to get on their property ladder. You look at the benefits of Kiwi Saver, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about how to get in to their first home using the Kiwi Saver. And a good example of that is if they build a new house, they can get up to $40,000 of free money to build that home. So that's why I would strongly advise that they go and see a mortgage advisor and get some unbiased, free advice around how to get on that ladder.
And find some land.
And find a house to build.
Excellent, thank you. Put that to the MP.
All right, yes indeed, $40,000 of free money. My problem is, in the city that I live in, the super city, you got homes, right, that are, what, $1 million?
That's right.
Seriously?
Estate home, 2 million. You
Yeah,
just said 2 million, he said over
2 million Mission Bay.
for a state house.
For a state house. So, Peter, what for the young people? What did you hear when you heard this? What's your advice?
My advice would be for people to take advice on the best way of financing themselves into a home. My advice would be to stop the migrant bashing that's going on and blaming migrants for every ill that seems to be emerging in our society. That is not the New Zealand way. We're a fair, egalitarian society, not a bigoted one. And my advice would be for people to look at jobs outside Auckland, because that's not the mecca that so many people think it's going to be.
Around the panel, how much did your first house, quickly, how much did your first house cost?
$145,000.
How much did your first house cost?
I think from memory about 35,000.
What? How much did your first house cost?
About 100, I think. About 100.
Do you have a house?
I'm just about to make an offer.
How much?
How much?
Well, I'm hoping it's
How
as
much?
little as possible.
No,
but
how much? Around ballpark?
Over $500,000.
Yeah.
Whoa! Single
There you
guy.
go. There you go. 40,000, $500,000. Stay with us. More next.